I'm back with one more video nugget, a condensed version of one of the topics I cover when I speak about missionaries' kids, or MKs. And this one is huge. This is one that I usually spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours unpacking when I talk about it at conferences. And I think it is crucial to raising healthy MKs. MKs who are healthy in their adulthood because they were given these 5 permissions in their childhood. Now there's a lot to be said about each one of these, and I can't cover it now, so if you look in the notes beneath this video, you'll find a link to an article that more deeply delves into each one of these themes. But for now, let me briefly address each one of them. The first permission most MKs need is permission to fail. And I've heard this from a lot of adult MKs. The MKs I work with today, some of them are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they still look back on their childhood when they debrief with me and say, I wish I hadn't been so shamed for being a child. Children fail. They might know what's expected of them, but they're still going to fail. They're going to sometimes tell half-truths. They're going to have emotional outbursts at very inconvenient times. They're going to be kids. They're going to not want to do things. They're going to rebel. And a lot of times, nobody says to them, you are an MK, therefore you must be perfect, therefore you must be above reproach. But they kind of glean that understanding from the context in which they grow up, because they know that they're under the microscope, that people are watching. And in their minds, if they fail, if they do something wrong, for a lot of MKs, they are bringing shame on their parents, shame on the work they do, and God Himself is feeling shame about who they are. That's a lot of pressure on a 5-year-old, isn't it? And I think that we hope that MKs will understand and know that it's okay to fail, but there is so much intensity in the context in which they grow up that I think we need to be clearer than that. We need to sit them down as people of influence in their lives, whether it's parents or friends of the family, and say, you know what? It's okay to fail. We all fail. And every time we fail, we have a chance to learn. That's the first permission to fail. The second permission a lot of MKs need, and again, I see the lack of this in the adult MKs I work with, is permission to grieve. It's no surprise to anyone that the number of goodbyes and transitions MKs experience at a young age is multiple times the number that their monocultural peers would go through. The grief they carry with them is real. It might be a 5-year-old's grief, but it is real, and it can be debilitating if it isn't expressed in a healthy way. We need to tell MKs that it's okay to be sad, that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to be mad at having to say another goodbye. More than that, the adults in their lives need to embody what healthy grief is. They need to see us processing through it as well. They need to see our tears. They need to see our frustration. They need to see us clinging to God for the comfort we need as we're dealing with so much loss. Permission number 3 is permission to dissent. MKs aren't always going to be happy with the next decision mom and dad make. What makes it even more complicated is that usually those decisions are attributed to God. God told us that we're going to move. We're going to change schools. We're going to go back home to take care of grandpa and grandma. All of these huge changes in the life of an MK are not easy, and they need to know that they have a voice in the conversation leading up to them. Even though sometimes there's nothing you can do as parents of MKs to make things go away or to make things the way they want them to be, for them to know that their opinion has been sought and heard is so life-giving, even under the hardest of circumstances. So, verbally articulate, clearly articulate that you want to know how they feel about this, that you want to know their thoughts, whether they're 3 years old or 18 years old, that you want them to be involved in the family processing that leads up to some of these monumental changes. The fourth permission a lot of MKs need is permission to doubt, and I'm talking about faith. I was one of those MKs who struggled with this for the entirety of my growing up years. I didn't encounter Jesus until I was 23. And for all those years before that, I felt deep-seated shame that I am an MK, my parents are missionaries, and I'm just not sure that God exists. I certainly haven't encountered Jesus. And if God does exist, I'm not sure that He's good, because my life has been hard. I've got to tell you that looking back, there were very few people who knew that I was doubting. I did everything right. I raised my hand. When the pastor called for people to raise their hand, I probably walked forward a couple times too. But deep down inside, I wasn't sure that God existed. And there are a lot of MKs today who have never moved past that point of doubt because they're so mired in the shame of being MKs who don't believe. So as a community, as parents of MKs, as people of influence in the lives of MKs, we would do them a great service by saying, you know what, I get doubt. I've been there. Let's talk this through. Who can I connect you with? What questions can I answer? And then to give doubt the time it needs to resolve itself as the MK honestly and earnestly seeks answers about God and faith. The final permission is a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to try and explain it clearly to you. It's permission to redefine significance. It comes from this. Growing up in ministry, growing up in the missionary world, MKs are told over and over again that the life of greatest significance is one that is devoted to full-time traditional ministry. It's reinforced every time they come home on home assignment, right? The churches say, look at these missionaries sacrificing so much, living cross-culturally. Let's put them on the stage. Let's have them tell us about their work because what they're doing is so significant compared to the plumber or the teacher or the musician in the church. These are missionaries. And so MKs a lot of times grow up thinking that they would be disloyal to their upbringing and disloyal to their own parents' calling if they decided to go into another line of work because they believe on a core level that the only life of significance, of value, is a life in ministry. I've known MKs who were clearly uniquely equipped for a career in a line of work that had nothing to do with traditional ministry, but they felt guilty for wanting to pursue that. So they gave up those dreams. They released that equipping they had for that job, and they chose instead to follow in their parents' footsteps, to do something that the world deems more significant than being a carpenter or a teacher or a CEO or a plumber. We need to make it clear to the MKs in our care that there is no higher calling than another, that ministry work is good and valid, but that we are called to shine God's light wherever it is that we toil. Because a life of significance is one in which we use our God-given talents and reflect Him in the circles we interact with. Those are the 5 basic permissions that a lot of MKs wish they had been given as children. So let's get better at articulating, at verbalizing the permissions they need in order to grow up into healthier adults. Thanks for listening.